No, it's still not playing again. No, there it is. Now let's talk about foreclosure. There's a lot of people that have homes and they've had issues with foreclosure. And if you live in a non-judicial foreclosure state such as California or Nebraska, what that means is that the bank does not have to file a lawsuit or prove that you were actually behind in your mortgage payment before they commence foreclosure procedures. They just send you a default notice and say that you were behind in your mortgage payment. But they don't have to really offer any proof. They just have to send you that default letter, which is absolutely ridiculous because here's what happens. Let's say you were paying your mortgage payment and your insurance or your taxes went up on your house. What will happen is that when you make your regular payment, because the servicers don't necessarily tell you that information, they will put that payment in what they call suspense and they will hold it until the next time you make the next mortgage payment in order to make up the difference for the increase in your insurance escrow or your tax uh, escrow. Now, they may not notify you of that right away. It may be several months before they tell you that your taxes or your insurance went up, even if they tell you within that year at all. In the meantime, they were holding payments in suspense. So actually, every time you made your mortgage payment, you were making it late. Then, if you really did have an issue where you made a mortgage payment late or you skipped a month, now you're 2 months behind and didn't even realize it. You think you may be a few days behind or a few weeks behind, but actually you're more than 2 months behind because the servicer was holding payments in suspense. That can cause a problem. So if the bank sends you a default notice, there's a thing in this country called due process, and you cannot be deprived of your liberty or your property without due process. So you should file a lawsuit in a non judicial foreclosure jurisdiction in order to make the bank come to court and prove that you're actually behind on the payments. That doesn't always happen. A lot of folks think that, well, the bank said that I'm behind, so I'm behind because they're not keeping up with the payments that they make themselves, or at least they're not keeping good records of the payments that they make. Some folks do a pretty good job in that. But what I'm saying is, with all of the fraud that has been proven by the feds that the banks and these services have engaged in, why should you believe and just take at face value everything that they tell you? That's ridiculous. So you should keep up with it yourself. Because how things really work under the law of mortgages is when you buy a house or even vehicles, because they fall under the same situation, 14 days after you make that purchase, that promissory note that you sign is usually bundled with millions of other people that's bought houses or cars across the country, and they're bundled together, and they're put into what they call a pooling trust. And what that is like is that every promissory note is like an individual carrot. And what these bankers do, they take these carrots and they bundle them together and they put them into a big blender and they grind those carrots down into carrot juice. 14 days later, the investors who come and they all want to take some profit or take or to participate in the profit of these mortgages that have been bundled or these car notes that have been bundled, and they sign these pooling and servicing agreements where they're all going to make a little bit of money from these promissory notes that have been bundled and put into a pooling trust. Now, each investor essentially gets a little bit of that carrot juice in a glass, so they're all enjoying the profits of what has been ground down, blended, and put into that carrot juice. But in order to foreclose or to repossess your vehicle, the bank has to reach into that vat or that blender of carrot juice and pull out the carrot. which is an impossibility. So once your promissory note has been securitized and put into a pooling trust, it is no longer negotiable. A promissory note is a negotiable instrument. A securitized instrument is not. So when the bank and your person who financed your car, whether it be a credit union or whatever, or a finance company, comes out to get it, you need to make them prove that you were actually behind in the payments and then find out who the actual holder of the note is. In other words, who are you really paying? Who really owns this paper that the bank is claiming that you are now delinquent on? And if they can't do that, then they can't foreclose, because a lot of times the servicer that you're paying is not the true owner of the note. And only the true owner or the true holder of that paper or that deed can effectively foreclose on you. And whoever is named in the lawsuit has to be the person who has standing to defend or to bring that lawsuit. And that's why it's so important that you follow up on these things and not just let them slide. Essentially what I'm telling you is that if the bank or your car financer is telling you that you're delinquent in your payments, you need to do something to make them verify and prove that you are in fact delinquent. Even if you've missed a payment or two, you can work something out and call them and make arrangements, because this is how credit also works. If you know that you're not going to be able to make your car payment on the first of the month or your house payment on the first of the month, don't wait till the first of the month to call them. If you call them, let's say on the 20th of the month before, the 25th, and you advise them that you're going to make that payment late because of whatever circumstances come up, and they agree to it, they cannot report it as a delinquent or a late payment on your credit report now, because they just agreed to a different term. It doesn't mean that it changes the term of the contract overall, but for that particular payment, they've changed the terms of the agreement. So even if you pay it late, they can't document it as late on your credit report because they agreed to take the payment later. Just whatever you tell them you're going to do, make sure that you tell them a date that you can actually perform, and don't tell them something that you know you can't do, because if you tell them that you're going to pay it on the 20th instead of the 1st, and the 20th comes and goes and you haven't done it, now they can still report it late. So just because you pay it late, if you make the arrangements, don't worry about it impacting your credit negatively and you're going to fall behind and things are going to be horrible. That's not true. Knowledge is power. And if you inform them before the due date and they agree to something different, whether it's a car payment or a house payment or any other payment as far as that goes, that works even for credit cards, they cannot report it late to the credit bureau. If you have other questions, you can email me at johncarter0729@gmail.com, or you can go to our Facebook page at Consumer Financial Service Center, and there's a lot of information there. And if you have any questions, there's contact information there where you can call us, email us, or however you need to contact us, and we'll send you more information at no cost to you.